Hey everyone, welcome back to Shattering Ceilings. It's Lauren.
And Megan, and we have a very fucking special episode today. It is our 100th episode. It is 2 years of us doing the podcast, and we are feeling pretty proud.
We are, because statistically speaking, most podcasts don't make it. What, Meg, you kind of looked it up a little bit.
Yeah, so 3 episodes is like your average, right? At least half the podcasts that are in existence never get past that much.
That's
And
crazy.
then after 20 episodes, that number goes down way more. So here we are. I mean, I don't stick with much in life, and I've been doing this for 2 fucking years.
2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps that we have each other too to keep us accountable, for sure.
It's made
Right.
a huge difference. Yes.
And in times where life was lifing, we were
Because
able to
it
have each
certainly
other.
has.
Right. It's been a crazy 2 years. Like, whatever. But anyway, we've been able to, bounce off of each other and or step in as needed. And so we've been able to keep this going for, again, 100 episodes. And we've had
Yeah.
so much feedback.
Yeah.
And, we actually just got, like, before this earlier today, we got another positive feedback. And I actually have one that I didn't post yet. I didn't even tell Megan about this. Yeah, I got a nice text over the weekend. They listened to our episode with Ashley Akers Smith and just wanted to share how impactful that was. So it's been pretty cool over the last 2 years to do this.
It really has. I don't know about you, but like, I mean, speaking specifically to Ashley's episode, even like we've talked about some great things here. We've had some really incredible people, and I think I've learned so much. We're both in personal development, like in wellness and all those things, and we learn a lot on our own, but on our own. Jeez Louise.
Okay. Never said we were great at grammar or English or any of that.
Right. I've learned so much by getting to listen to people's perspectives and like even practices like that, catch it, check it, change it. I use that so much in my life.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really was. And, I think one thing I did talk to Megan about earlier too is, I was listening to Gary V earlier today, and he talked about how to put yourself in places, we've all heard the expression, most of us have anyway, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that's true. But going beyond that, like putting yourself in spaces and around people that are really creating change and shaking shit up and just doing things differently, it really does directly impact your life in such a positive way and really grows you. And I feel that, on this podcast, we've definitely been able to do that. We've been able to get people on here that have just made such a big impact on us and hopefully you guys as well. And it got us thinking like, okay, we have been doing this for 2 years. And as long as all the streaming platforms are around till whenever, like this information and our voices and the things that we share are going to be out there forever. And it really is like creating a legacy that our children, our grandchildren, great grandchildren will be able to hear for, again, so much time to come. Right.
It's kind of crazy. Yeah. It makes me nervous sometimes. Like, are we doing it justice? Yeah. Because like,
sure.
Are we doing our best? Are we doing good work? And we get good feedback.
We do get good feedback, but we can
which
always,
is helpful.
Right. And we can always, unless the reality is we know that we're always going to continue to improve. Right.
For sure.
We're not at our best and we never will be, because we're just going to keep going. But we really want to talk about some things that we specifically want to help impact, again, positively, future generations. Like if we had to give them advice, basically based on the last 2 years of what we've learned, like what would we share with them? So me and Meg came up with a list. And before I get any further and I forget, make sure you listen to the end of this because we are going to share an exciting announcement with you guys and also a giveaway. And it's somewhat scary, I think, but also pretty exciting, right, Meg?
I 10 out of 10 do not feel prepared for it, but we are here and we're going for it.
I am forcing Meg to speed up and she is not slowing me down to that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, as per our human design. I'm making her squirm right now.
Very much so. My hands are sweating.
Right?
Not for real life. So legacy.
First thing on that list, I think, which we're doing right now, is not playing it small.
Yes, doing the things that we're scared of. committing to things before we feel ready, which
Mm-hmm.
you guys will hear this coming up in the next couple of weeks on an interview we just did. The interviewee was talking about how she used to sit on decisions and
Mm-hmm.
question her decisions, and it came down to where like I was dying inside as she was talking about that. I'm like, are you just talking about my life? And that's how I feel right now. Not
You
prepared.
earth signs need to
I
be
know.
like fully grounded in your decisions
I
before you
know.
make
The
one.
roots run too deep.
Right.
Um, yeah. So big announcement. Leaving legacy. Let's get back on. I'm that uncomfortable right now that I'm having trouble staying focused. And we're gonna leave this in because that's real
Well,
life.
I
And that's
think
part
that
of
right
it.
now, the second tip is to be authentic. You
Yeah.
are being
Don't play small.
authentic.
That was the first tip. Don't play
Right.
small.
Second one
That's
is
me. Be
authenticity,
authentic.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that one's huge. And I think as we get older, we dive into that a little more. I mean, hopefully, right? Like, I think it's normal or common for, as you're growing up, you're trying to do the things to kind of like fit in. And
Right.
sometimes those things don't feel authentic, but we go along with it because our friends say so, our families say so, whatever. It's
Right.
the
It's learning
norm.
how to be in the world too.
Yeah.
Like you have to experiment and test the different things. And I
Mm-hmm.
think as we get older, you find more and more what is for you. And hopefully we
Yes.
have comfortability enough with ourselves and being vulnerable and trying scary things to step into those,
Mm-hmm.
and not just keep repeating the same habits or patterns because it's normal or,
Right. And I find
status quo,
that
whatever.
you have to be your authentic self to find your people. Like
Hmm.
that's I loved again a couple weeks ago when Danielle McCleary said like you are either attracting your people to you or you're repelling. And
Hmm.
like that is why you need to be yourself and you need to show up as yourself because you need to figure that
Yeah.
out. You know,
Yeah.
you're not
Absolutely.
for everybody, and that's okay.
Right. And the image
Mm-hmm.
that we, especially in the world of curation and Instagram, and it's really easy to create an
Instagram.
image and then get stuck in the habit of like, well, this is who I am because this is how I've always shown up on the internet. And
Right.
then
And being
maybe the
scared to
people,
flip it. Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. Or not even knowing where to start,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not even the fear. It's just like, well, wait, how, where do I go from here?
I saw this thing over the weekend and I thought, oh God, that was me. Like, I used to judge other people that were really like putting themselves out there. And this could be as
Mm.
simple as like wearing a thong to the freaking beach, guys. Like, and I'm like, wow, look at her. Like, who does she think she is? And really, like, that judgment came from like me not being comfortable, like in my own
Hmm.
skin, right? That was an insecurity of me or something that I felt like I could never do. Right.
Right.
And so
Right.
again, it's like the older I get, the more I recognize, like, oh no, I I don't think that person's like wrong for doing that. I'm actually a
Like,
little
good for
jealous
her
that
for
they
being
are.
confident
Like,
enough to do it. Yeah.
exactly. They're being their authentic self. And I think that's something to be celebrated,
Hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
So be
So
authentic.
be authentic. Number three, this is
I hope we're
Megan's.
giving a good example of that, like us being here doing
Oh
this. Like
yeah.
this is us living into we love to talk. We want to share. I want to give you all the advice, whether you ask for it or not.
Right. Right.
you
Well, your
know?
strategy is to respond. So I guess that makes
Right.
sense, right?
Doing it on a public platform is scary,
It is. It
right?
is scary, but you're
Letting
leaning
people
into
see
that
your
for
big
sure.
opinions. And I mean, for you, Laura, too, like talking about things that are a little more woo woo. When we first started this, I think there was so much more apprehension around like what we
Not so much
talked
the
about.
woo. Well, yeah, just in general, like what we talked
Hmm.
about. How would
Hmm.
that be perceived,
Hmm.
professionally, personally? And now I just really like I going back to Instagram or whatever. I don't know. I made a reel this weekend, and it was all my like stories like meshed into like one, and it was like I'm that mom on Instagram
Oh, the
with those
network marketing
stories.
mom.
No, not the network marketing mom,
Oh,
just
okay.
like that mom whose stories go from like I'm with my children doing wholesome things to at the club on the stage to at the beach, then back to like I don't
Right. Doing
know,
my full moon rituals and pulling my tarot
just
cards.
right, like just like because that was one thing I worried about, right? Was appearing
Hmm.
flaky or appearing like whatever and like pivoting, just whatever, you know, just being me sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think over the years, I've really just been like, you know what? Like, it doesn't matter if they understand that. It doesn't matter if I look like I'm all over the place because I'm
Right.
happy doing what I'm doing.
Right.
And I think that's really, really want to get when it comes to being authentic.
I think that's
Yeah.
true. Yes, letting people see, like, your whole dynamic self, not
Yeah.
just a little part of you.
Peace.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mm.
So number 3, your favorite, I think. Right?
Probably. Mhm. Have
Having
hard
hard
conversations.
Yeah, having hard
Yeah.
conversations. Yeah.
Yeah. Have the conversations that are uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
Ask the person the question that maybe you don't understand their culture or their religious background or whatever, like, I don't know. It adds so much more flavor to life, I think, when you can be open
Yeah.
to diving into the topics that are a little more uncomfortable.
I think it's asking good questions too. I think you're really good at that,
Mhm.
you know?
Well,
Like
thanks.
asking you are. You're welcome. How did that go? How did that make you feel? What did you learn from that? I mean, you literally asked me that last night and I was like, I saw it and I'm like, it is 9 o'clock here. I am not going into what I learned right now. I'm gonna talk to her tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like I would
Yeah.
expect nothing less. You know what I mean?
I know, I'm just it's such a big curiosity of mine to know, like, what is going through somebody else's mind,
Yeah.
and I don't know if everybody feels that way, but, like, have you ever not been surprised by somebody's response? I feel like I always am, even if I think I have an idea of what it'll be or I understand the flavor of it, like,
Yeah.
I'm
I
always
mean,
shocked.
sometimes. I mean, I don't know if I'm always shocked. I guess it depends. But there are, I guess it's more surprising when they say something that you weren't expecting.
Yeah, but
Or,
if it
or it's
happens more than
help yeah. Or
I
there's
don't know,
something
I think so.
profound to say. You know what I mean? Then you're like,
Yeah. Like,
or it's
everybody
just
has
different.
such innate wisdom, right? Like,
Hmm.
I think it's really easy to look up towards these, like, influencers or spiritual leaders or people that are just incredibly articulate, and that's their life's work, right? Is to
Hmm.
share life through words or art or whatever. But then you could have a fucking conversation with somebody in line at Walmart
Yeah.
that just says something that hits so deep, and you're like, "Man."
Well, I really think that those kind of conversations are like divine, and
Sure.
they were ordained to be that way.
Sure,
And
but they don't
even,
happen unless you're willing to have them.
right, right. And even like you're with your children, right? Like I think that there's a lot of wisdom that comes from having conversations with them and hearing their perspective and their take on things. Actually, I just got, I don't know if you guys saw my story. I just bought this journal for me and Wyatt, and I think it's called
Yeah, I saw that.
Just Between Me and You
Me
or
yeah.
something like that. I can reshare it. But I'm like so excited for it because it's like asking a question and it's like my response and his response. And I thought that he would be a lot more excited for it. I mean, he was like, as I'm like, this is my way of like our time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
But
don't
it's
know.
also scary, like, now,
Probably.
is there expectation that he shares a certain like,
Yeah.
everybody's perspective of it is different. I saw
Yeah.
that too, and I was like, "Oh my god, I love this. I want one for me
Yeah.
and my kids."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But
Simone's
who
too
knows
little
what his
yet. So
perspective
like
is.
eventually I'll do one
Yeah.
with her. But I heard actually my friend Jill, who she's been on before, she and her mom had a journal. She may have even said that on the podcast.
I think she did.
Yeah, where you know what I mean? And I think that's such a great idea to open up for those hard conversations. Sometimes it's hard to have it in person. You know what I mean?
For
And
sure.
and having it through text, I think, is it's not my favorite way either. But
It
sending
does
a
help sometimes,
it
though.
does though, at least opening it
Aaron and
up.
I do that all the time.
Really?
Yeah, like, we're both super passionate, especially when it comes to, um like, justice and, whatever.
Yeah.
When we get into an argument, we can get very hard
Sure.
on our, like, hills that we're ready to die on, right?
Yeah.
So,
You can
one way
think it
that
out
we've
more, right?
right, you can think
Mhm.
about it, you're not in the presence of the other person who's also heated, that's, like, staring at you like a
It's
smoking
true.
fucking dragon, right? Like
Yeah.
and then it opens up the conversation, you've had time to think, you see the other person's perspective without feeling the need to respond immediately,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, yes, good things that can come out through text. Sometimes you can hide behind it also.
For sure.
But I mean, there's definitely been times where I've written letters because that's easier, whether it's to my spouse or
Mhm.
even my mom when she was here, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
To
It's a
get
good way
my
to
point across.
practice too,
Hmm.
like, with your kid. I did that with Veda this morning. Something happened and, like, she needs to apologize, right? She needs to take responsibility for what she's done, and it felt really hard, so I was like, "Let's write a letter.
Hmm.
You can give it to dad when he gets home, and then he can read it.
Hmm.
When you feel ready, you can go talk to him about it."
Right.
It softens the blow. Same thing with the journal, right?
Yeah.
It's way
Hmm.
easier to write something down and then close it and not look at it than to have to say it to your mom in the face.
Yeah. 100%. But we do. We need to have hard conversations. And
Mhm.
it's learning the skills to then be able to like react or respond appropriately, you know, that we
Yeah.
really need to work on. I
Yes.
think,
Golly. That's the truth.
you know. And so that
Yeah.
goes into our fourth, which is not to shy away from like topics that are maybe counterculture or taboo or again
Yeah.
uncomfortable. You know, like
Yeah.
I think that that's just our way of like understanding each other better and learning so that we can have like again just a better grasp on things and what's going on in someone's life or the world or just all different kinds of things, you know, like.
Absolutely. I think that's true with anything.
And I think
Yeah.
too, like when it comes to stigma, like we, you know, we had a guest on earlier and she talked a little bit about this. And I know I've talked about this before too. If we never talk about those taboo things, it's almost like you're keeping that stigma alive, you know?
Yeah.
Like in order to break down the stigma, you have to be able to talk about it.
Absolutely. Well, okay. So this is getting, maybe this sounds soapboxy or I'm saying something too harsh, but like, um, most of those things are taboo because we don't fucking talk about them.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and it leads to ignorance.
Mm-hmm.
Ignorance is a huge issue in our society because there's this pressure, and I'm fucking pointing to myself here because I find myself in this position a lot. Like, say, even in your own area of expertise, like, there's stuff that you don't know. You can
Mm-hmm.
be the best teacher in the world, and there's still stuff that you don't know.
Right.
And we feel this pressure to always have the answer, right? So
Yes.
we find ourselves speaking to things, laying judgment on things that we
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily have any information or fact to back up.
Right.
So having those hard conversations rather than just throwing out a blanket opinion, you now have experience and conversation and like weight to back up what you're saying. And it might even change your opinion to something,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we have to be willing to get uncomfortable. We have to be willing to get into a conversation and know like they may say something that I don't like,
Right.
right? How am I
Mm-hmm.
going to not act a fool
Right.
by letting my own or feel triggered and then say something, whatever. Like, how do we open the conversation for that change, for
Mm-hmm.
that peace? Like, I feel like at this point, we're all looking for the same thing. Everybody wants peace,
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants ease, connection. Like, none of that's ever changed as long as humans have been here.
Mm-hmm.
We have more space for it now, but we're too fucking scared to talk about stuff.
Right. Right.
I don't
And I
know.
think it's that fear of the judgment, you know what I mean? And
Or looking like you don't know something or
yeah,
that you're wrong or
which goes
looking
back to again, like
stupid.
looking judged somehow. And you know
Yeah.
what's interesting is one of my friends said to me like recently too. She said, you know, a lot of times the people that are doing the judging often feel judged. And I was like, wow, like I never really thought of it that way.
Okay. So I saw this thing. I don't know if I sent it to you, but it has been rolling in my brain on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Someone asked a person a question like along the lines of like, how do you get past like the fear of judgment, right? And it's a cycle of things. So people are judging me,
Mm-hmm.
but I realize that that's like their own issue, right? That's within them. It's a reflection back on themselves, something they don't like about themselves. But then also, if you're judging other people, oh fuck, never mind. I just lost it. Cut that out, Dan. Let's keep going. God damn. Y'all, I don't know.
You need a fizz or something.
I do. I know. It was so good too. It fits the situation so perfectly. We'll just pretend that I didn't say that and we're gonna move on.
All right.
All right, sorry. I'm gonna
Going back to
do my best.
number five.
Number
Actually,
five.
we're gonna get to number five. And again, going back to Gary Vee, what he said this morning
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
listened to, you know, put yourself in rooms or situations where you don't necessarily feel qualified. Like, guys, starting this podcast, we were not qualified to start a
We had no idea what we
podcast.
were doing.
We've
I
never,
mean,
I
yes,
mean,
fuck it. Who
I mean,
cares?
listen, I'm not going to say we're not qualified, but what I'm saying is like we were beginners,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I would still
Mm-hmm.
say we're in our infancy of learning how to be podcasters, right?
Absolutely.
You know, like, but it didn't stop us. And we listened to many, and we still do listen to many podcasts, and we put ourselves in conversations and with people that I don't, you know, Megan's introducing to people. I have no fucking idea what sometimes they're talking about, or it's a completely new concept to me, you know, but I learn. And, you know, even like interviewing certain or asking to interview certain people and we're like, oh
Mhm.
shit, like, oh, what's this person going to say? But you just do it because you want to be in their presence and learn from them and have you guys learn from them. I think
Yeah.
that's key to building an amazing fulfilling life is to put yourself in situations or in rooms of people where you're not the biggest fish in the room, you know?
Right.
You have to go and have conversations with people. I think that's the best way and the easiest way to learn too. Like I told my son that. I said, listen, we were having a conversation in the car and my grandmom's saying like, oh, well, if you want to have your own business someday, like maybe you should go take some like courses at college or go to college for business. I was like, hey, an easier way? Hire a mentor that does really well at what you want to do. And I promise you, you'll learn everything. you know,
Yep.
I think that's a
It's
quickest
true.
way. Mm-hmm.
It's true. There's a lot of people, that have, especially in higher education, and I hate to say this because that, it's what Aaron does, but they teach you information out of a book, but
Yeah.
don't necessarily ever have the experience in what they're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, they learned it from the book, they never put it into practice.
Right.
So, what you get from being with somebody and allowing yourself to be mentored by somebody that's actually put it into practice. They're like, "Hey, I've already done all
Right.
these things that the book said, and here,
A
let me
hundred
tell you how
percent.
they worked out."
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that's like a big thing to also, I know this is not on our list, but I'm
That's
going to
okay.
piggyback off this. Like, listen, you want to learn from people that are doing what you want to do, that
Have
are
been where
in
you've been.
the trenches with you,
Mhm.
right? That are
Mhm.
like not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. Like, that's super important whenever you're looking for
Absolutely.
a mentor, a coach, a course, whatever. Like, you want to learn from those people, right?
Yeah. No, not just anybody, but somebody who's been, like, where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Specific.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, okay, so the next thing on our list is do it with self-doubt, and I feel like that's come up. Just to
Mm-hmm.
dive into that, because it's come up several times in this conversation already, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the discomfort of trying something new, of growing, and we know that there has to be discomfort. Y'all have heard me talk about it through the lens of Chinese medicine so many times now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there has to be some sort of discomfort to shake shit up so that change happens. Because as long as we're comfortable, like, the water is steady. We're
Right.
not going anywhere.
Right.
And I think everything that we've talked about on this episode today really comes down to just that, like, being okay with getting uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. Whether it's uncomfortable conversations, being in an uncomfortable space, trying something new, being willing to look at your feelings, your triggers, your responses, your all your things, having the hard, it's all comes down to
Right.
being okay with doing something and being, like, physically, emotionally, whatever, uncomfortable through the experience of it.
It's the only way you're going to grow. Like, the
Yes.
only way,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, something that I feel like we've talked about on here all the time is mindfulness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being easy with yourself through, that's what it's all for.
Mm-hmm.
Because life keeps lifing. Whether
Mm-hmm.
you stay where it's comfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable anyways,
Yeah.
right? Maybe the discomfort is not having the income you want, or your health not being where you want it to be at, or feeling disconnected from your
Right.
friends and family, not
You
having solid
choose.
relationship. Right.
Mm-hmm. Choose your hard.
Right. I
Mm-hmm.
hate that saying, but it is true.
Yeah. Why do you hate
It
that saying?
probably because it's become so cliche. Yeah, I feel like things lose their weight sometimes when we say them over and over again. And I hear myself saying it, I'm like, "Oh, you're gross." But
Well,
it
I
is
mean,
it is
yeah,
true though. There's a
it is
reason why it
true.
becomes cliche because it's true across the board,
It is. I
you
think
know?
so. Yeah. So, number 7, this is a good one. And it's kind of tied to number 8 too. You know, we talked about this on one of our interviews about, and we've talked about this before too, about personal versus like private,
Mhm.
and growing up in a family where things were private. You weren't supposed to talk about X, Y, and Z. It was only in
Mhm.
this house, and that for me brought in a lot of like shame, and not like carrying things that I didn't have to carry alone, but I did because I felt shame around it. Like, nobody, I don't want to tell anybody that. Like, I don't want to admit to
Right.
that. I don't want people to know, you know? And yeah, like silence, I think carries shame, you know?
It does. And it perpetuates this idea that we're all on our own here.
Yeah.
You know, like the fact that depression is such a massive thing that we're a epidemic, if you
Mhm.
know, like at this point, and it comes down to that feeling of isolation
Mhm.
for a lot of the time. I don't want to speak for everybody, but like that's a huge theme in feeling depressed is that you're isolated. People don't understand what you're going through. You
Right.
can't talk to anybody about it, right? Like,
But who said you can't, you know?
right.
I think that's something that we have been, conditioned. And I'm hoping that, our generation and the generations coming are like breaking that cycle and teaching our youth that that doesn't have to be that way,
Yes.
that we don't
Yeah.
need to keep ourselves, our problems, our issues silent, that we have help and we can ask for help. And I think that's another thing that goes into that too, is like asking for help, you know?
Yeah. I think you're right. It that can be one of those scary things,
Mm-hmm.
right? Asking for help and then accepting
For
the
how
help
you,
and not feeling like you need to bend over backwards to repay the help to
well,
then
that, or just feeling like, oh, am I being needy? Am I being
right.
weak?
Right. Am
Because I'm
I the
asking for
one that's the
help.
burdensome person?
Right.
Is it even? Am I giving as much as I'm taking? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think those are all conversations that can really hold us back from seeking the help that we need.
Yeah. I would love to see that just gone, like that whole,
Same.
you know?
Right. It takes a village, right? But then we don't actually let ourselves be part of the village. Like everybody thinks that they need to be like the village, like leader and wise woman and medicine woman and the one that is the hunter gatherer and the one that weaves all the baskets and the one that raises all the children. Like, why
Mm-hmm.
are we isolate ourselves and feeling like we need to do all of the things? And when it comes down to it, like, I mean, okay, besides just being okay with getting uncomfortable, I think if there's one other thing I personally would love people to get out of this podcast from us is that there are literally no fucking rules.
Yeah.
There's no rules.
You make your own.
Yeah. Like the only reason why we live a certain way is because we have been so well trained to follow rules,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there, from the time you were born, there are rules. There has to be bedtimes. We have to sleep train. We have to eat these things. And it just follows us through life until we finally figure out that there are no fucking rules.
Mm-hmm. I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, there's not more that needs to be said about that, right? Do what
Yeah.
you want to do. As long as
Yeah.
you're not harming yourself or somebody else, if it is for the betterment of your life and your family and the people around you, like, do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah. Lastly, we have for number 8, vulnerability.
Mm,
And this one is huge, and I think again, this goes back with um it's kind of tied to, again, the personal not private kind of thing, because again, it's hard to get vulnerable with people because you're sometimes feeling like you're showing all your cards, all of your
yeah.
emotions are on the table. You're telling the story that makes you feel uncomfortable and squirm in your seat and all the things, but it really is the only way, I think, to connection. I
Mm,
don't think there's any other way, you know besides being vulnerable. I think that sure, there's a time and a place, like especially when we're talking about leadership and, like, say, children and things like that, when you can be vulnerable as a parent or as an authority, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I think that it's what allows us to see each other as human, and
right.
that there are commonalities, and you bleed, red, I bleed red. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's what connects us and makes us understand too that, kind of like you're just saying, like, we're not alone in these things that we're going through. But if we don't share these things with each other, like, we're not going to know.
Right. It's like we're existing in these tiny little bubbles, just floating
Mm-hmm.
around each other, but never actually getting to experience each other fully.
Mm-hmm. And that's where the I feel like that true connection, that love, that overwhelming, like, filling your cup kind of feeling comes from, is like when you've been able to be vulnerable with someone and express yourself in, like, your truest, most authentic way, and they can also, like, there's nothing better than that, when you don't have to filter yourself, when you don't have to be afraid to say or do whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah,
Those are the friendships that are, like, amazing. You know what I mean?
absolutely.
Or
Yeah.
relationships in general. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, right. Any relationship. But I think friendships are, Could you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Holy shit, they were literally having a screaming match in
Oh.
the next room over. I couldn't even hear what you were saying. Okay. I just had to parent for a moment, guys. So getting back on track. It's the last week of summer at my house. I know you all know how that fucking goes. We're all
Yeah.
ready for everybody to be back in school. As much as it's been a great summer. We're running out of things to do over here. Vulnerability, being able to connect, getting my brain back on track for a second.
It's not just friendships, but it's relationships
Yeah,
too, is what I
it's all
said.
relationships. And we can exist in these relationships that we feel like we are fully ourselves in, right? And even find out, I can say right now, I've been in my relationship for 13 years, and there's still places where, the places where Aaron and I butt heads are
Mm-hmm.
the places where we hold the stuff closest to our chest,
Yep. 100%.
right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I can't empathize with him if I don't understand
Mm-hmm.
his experience and vice versa. And so
Right. And so,
having those difficult conversations,
mm-hmm.
getting vulnerable and being willing to say the things, right, allows us to see each other, like Lauren said, our humanness,
Right.
right? Our imperfections, our struggles, our burdens, whatever you want to call it. Like, and when you can see that in somebody, you have way more empathy.
Yeah. And just
You
like
have way more patience.
understanding, I think that
Yes.
we hold things close to our chest, or we have that wall up or whatever, and we think that we're protecting ourselves from experiencing hurt, but what we don't realize is we're literally like repelling the love and understanding compassion that we could possibly feel.
Right.
And like
Right.
that is definitely worth the risk of feeling uncomfortable in the moment of vulnerability, you know?
Yes. And this is something that you've said a lot over the course of us having this podcast, and I didn't fully understand it. Um, but this idea of like, you're not only taking that opportunity away from yourself to be loved and cared for and seen and understood, which we're all looking for, right?
All
But
looking for that.
also,
It's all we want, right?
we're stealing that opportunity from the people that want nothing more than to love us the way that we love them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you go out and you pride yourself on being the caregiver, the one that shows everybody love and is always there for everybody else, but then you never let anybody be there for you, like that takes their opportunity to love you the way that you've shown love to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad if you think about it that way. Like
Mm-hmm.
think about the joy you feel when you're caring and loving for other people.
Right.
Like we steal that from other people, not letting them be there for us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
I know. That's a big one.
And
Probably
that one,
probably my
yeah.
favorite.
Yeah. That one definitely hits different now 2 years later than it did the first time I heard you say it.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of topics I think that we've talked about maybe a couple times over the last 2 years, and they've only gotten deeper or just more developed, you know what I mean, as we've gone
Mhm.
on. And that's the thing, like, let's be honest, like we talk about probably 10, I'm just throwing a number out there, 10 main things all the time. It's just different ways that we've experienced it, or we're understanding it, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's just in everything in life.
It's true, right? It's that cycle of like, you know nothing, then you feel like you know everything, and then you learn something new and you're like, "Well, what?"
I didn't
We're
really
back
know
to
that
0.
much. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
So thanks for being
So,
here for 2 years of us
yeah,
going through that
guys,
cycle and learning.
we appreciate you, and we've appreciated all the feedback.
Mhm.
I'm actually gonna make two announcements. Megan's probably gonna shit her pants.
Oh god.
So, you ready?
No, I'm
So,
not, but let's go.
number one, we are introducing a new engagement piece with you
Mm.
guys. So, we want to show up and hear from you more. And we do encourage you guys to reach out to us. And some of you do, and we love that. But we want to hear more input about maybe questions you may have, topics you want to talk about. So we are going to once a week. Did we pick a day?
No, we didn't.
Do you want to right now?
Okay.
You
Um,
see how I like fly by the seat of my pants and Megan's like,
mhm,
slow the fuck down.
mhm.
We're going to pick a day to do Q&A. So we're going to have it on our stories. We'll post the little question box up there. AMA, ask me anything. And we're going to take your questions, and we are going to do an episode every few weeks with some of the questions that we get from you guys. Maybe
Mhm.
if they're super intriguing and super in depth, we may even do a whole episode on them. I don't know.
That will be very fun. Please send us some juicy ones.
Yeah. So we're going to do Mondays, since Mondays are our big, it's
Perfect.
the beginning of the week. It's when we do a lot of work on the podcast
Yeah.
anyway. So
And
we're
now
going to do Mondays.
guys, we don't ask for much on here, or at least I feel
Mm-mm.
like we try not to. This requires participation to work. We
Mm-hmm.
really would love to expand the people that we are, like, able to reach with this, and
Mm-hmm.
part of us doing this is engagement, right? We So, ask the questions. If you're
Ask the
listening to
questions.
this now and there's something random that's popping up, go ahead and send it to us. Send it to our
Mm-hmm.
DMs. It doesn't matter what it is,
Right.
how big, how small, how stupid, whatever. It doesn't have to be on the topic of anything that we've covered
No,
here.
could be opinion. What's your opinion on X, Y, and Z? Like
Yeah,
anything.
absolutely.
If it's taboo, extra credit.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
if you can surprise us with something that we haven't covered,
yeah, if it's
extra,
spicy,
extra
I don't
credit.
know.
Hell yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Make us get uncomfortable.
yeah,
I would love that.
yeah. So that's announcement number one. Announcement
Monday
number two,
nights.
Monday nights or just Mondays. I don't know. Whatever,
Yeah,
Mondays.
true, true.
The other thing, the second announcement is you may have heard me and Meg talk about we are in the process of a course from one of our favorites, Danielle McCleary, and we are getting certified in one of our favorite topics, which is human design.
Yes.
And we are almost finished. And that means that, again, we will be certified to read your human
Mhm.
design chart and tell you more about how that impacts your life, maybe give you the validation that you need of why you feel a certain way or act a certain way or think a certain way, helps you navigate through life when it comes to decision making, all
Yeah,
kinds of
and
things.
even, like, there's different ways to utilize your chart to
Hmm.
incorporate things or switch up the way that you're currently doing things to bring more ease into your life. Like,
Hmm.
my goal with this is for it to be functional for you, right? We don't wanna just hand
Yes.
you a packet of information, have a conversation with you, and send you on your way. We want
Right.
you to leave feeling, like, empowered of,
Hmm.
like, "Okay, here's how I can start to do this experiment to see how it affects my life."
Right. Right. So we're really excited about this. So we are
Super.
going to give away a reading. Okay.
Yes.
And how you're going to enter that giveaway is when this airs, you are going to leave a review on
Mhm.
whatever platform you use to listen, and you're going to share it on your Instagram, and you have to tag us. You can tag
Mhm.
us personally, but you definitely need to tag at Shattering Ceilings Pod, which is our Instagram. That's where people can find us. And obviously the idea here is we want to expand, our impact so that we can help other people. And if this episode, this podcast in general has impacted you in a positive way and really helped you, again, the best compliment you can give us is to help us help other people, right?
Mhm.
So please, please, please like us, give us a 5-star review, give us a review on whatever platform it is, and then share this episode. And then we are going to pick a winner. So
Yes.
we will give you details in the notes about when we will pick that winner. Um, but I'm excited, and I'm excited to help you guys understand yourself better, because that's
Mhm.
really what this is about too. Like personal growth, self development is to develop yourself more, but also understand yourself more so that you can, like when you know better, you do better. Right. And so this is just
Absolutely.
one more tool that you'll be able to utilize to do better. Right.
Mhm. That's what we're here for. Help us to extend this conversation even further.
Yes. So happy 100th episode, guys.
Woo.
We are so grateful for you. I'm grateful for
Mhm.
my partner, Meg, keeping
Oh, I'm
me
grateful for you too.
on track and growing together, doing some cool shit together.
Yeah,
So
it's been great.
on to
It's
the
gonna
next
continue to be
season.
great. Yeah. Oh, we didn't even get there. Guys, we were gonna talk about what's to come with us. Just expect more, excitement,
Hmm.
I think. More of
Yeah.
that unhinged energy that we've
Yeah.
been trying to serve.
A lot of great
Um,
interviews coming up, guys, from some powerhouses
yes.
and some really vulnerable stories, amazing stories,
Mhm.
and more to come about human design and all the things that we will be able to share with you.
Yeah. And as always, if you ever want to be on the podcast, if you have a topic you want to cover, a story that you want to tell, let us know. We'd love to have you on.
Yep. All right, guys. See you next time.
Adios.